Hey everybody, what is up? So, Warframe, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's a very popular free-to-play game that's been out since, what, 2013? It's a game that I used to play a lot back in the day before the release of Destiny 1 on the PlayStation 4. And it was pretty good back then. But lately, just out of curiosity, I downloaded it again and have started to play it once again as well, just to see where the game has gone and where it's going to be going this year. And honestly, I am floored with how it's progressed, how it's changed, evolved, and what is coming in just a couple of months. So, with this video, I'm going to give you guys 5 reasons why you should play and or revisit Warframe in 2017. Reason number 5, there is a ton of content in this game. In terms of just Warframes alone, there's something like 30 now, so that's 30 different characters that you could play with. Granted, a lot of them you will have to grind some platinum to play, but that's not too difficult once you get your head around the whole trading system and grinding rare things that you can trade for platinum, which everybody does. It's something that you can easily do. It just takes a little bit of know-how. The same thing applies with all of the weapons of the game too. There's got to be like 50-something plus primary weapons, 50-something plus secondary weapons, and the same amount for melee weapons. So we're talking like 150 to 200 different weapons that you can level up and max out and just play with. There are also a ton of different mods that you can collect as well that can change these guns and make most of them viable, at least to some extent, in the end game. So there's tons of those to collect as well. There's tons of different pets that you can collect, sentinels that follow you around and help you in a variety of ways. You have your Kubro pets and other animal-like allies that follow you around and help you kill enemies. And there's plenty of those to collect and maintain. It's just nuts. There's a ton, an absolute ton of things for you to do. And in terms of locations to visit in-game, that has also been expanded. Not only do you have all of the planets from our solar system, with each planet having their own set of missions with randomly generated levels, as well as modes. And these modes range from extermination, where you have to kill all the enemies, to capture, where you have to chase down a elusive tankier target and capture him. And then you have rescue, which has you rescuing an NPC. Then you have defense, mobile defense, survival, excavator, missions where you have to fight the boss of that planet or region. Which leads into reason number 4. A lot of these modes and a lot of these locations and the gameplay itself is just so much more polished than it used to be. Everything from the movement system, which has been massively overhauled and streamlined, which makes running up walls and running along walls that much easier, getting around the world quickly using a combination of shift and crouch to sprint, is really, really easy. You can just fly through the air quite literally. And while you're in the air, if you hold down the right mouse button, or if you're on a controller, I think L2, when you aim, while you're in air, you'll slow down, not time, but you yourself will slow down as you're flying through the air. You can get a lot more distance, but you can also aim as you're flying through this air and shoot your targets mid-air. It looks really cool, and it's a lot more functional than I made it sound. A lot of the modes that I talked about earlier have been given more functionality. They've been given more polish and more detail. Each mode feels like its own thing now, whereas in the past, back in 2014, a lot of the modes kind of blended in with each other. I don't really know how to explain it that well, but survival felt kind of similar to defense. And granted, they still do now, but it feels more balanced. They've obviously tweaked it and balanced it some, while other modes have just been given major overhauls, like the capture missions. It's actually a little bit harder to capture your intended target. They're faster, they're more elusive, they have buffs on them, and that all feels pretty nice. Gunplay feels sharper than ever. Your Warframe's abilities just feel great. A lot of Warframes have had overhauls and changes to their kit that makes them feel really great. Everything from the bog standard Excalibur that you get from the get-go as a free player to others like Ember. They just feel great. A lot of the environments as well for a lot of the planets have had overhauls to their textures, to their geometry, to the weather and lighting and time of day. The graphics themselves, at least from on PC, are spectacular. I would say they rival Destiny 2 in terms of how they look, in terms of the effects and everything. I'd say the lighting is a bit more subdued. There's not a lot of God rays going around, but you have a lot of other advanced lighting effects and shadowing effects that I rarely see in AAA games nowadays. Reason number 3. Warframe has story-driven quests now. As you complete each planet, you have the ability to unlock the next planet through this particular mission that has a set of prerequisites that needed to be completed. Once you have completed those prerequisites, you fight another Warframe, which is an NPC, and then once you beat them, you unlock the next planet. Well, a lot of these special missions will give you quests that are there to guide you through the game and its various functions and features, but also to give you a bit more dialogue to deal with. You'll hear a lot of NPCs talking to you or to the AIs that you have on your ship, and it's all pretty well done. The voice acting, I'd say, isn't as good, quite as good as other AAA titles that are really, really good in terms of voice acting, but it is definitely serviceable, and it helps to fill out a lot of the lore that this game actually has. This game has a lot of lore, just like other games like Destiny does. It doesn't do the greatest job of showing it. However, the equivalent of Destiny's Grimoire, Warframe does have in-game. So keep that in mind. But yeah, in 2017 Warframe, it has more story, it's got easy accessible lore, and it's all fairly interesting. Reason number 2. It's free to play, but it's a fair free to play. It's not the kind of game that you look at it and you feel like, oh, this was obviously a move by the developers as a way to nickel and dime me to death. Yes, it is a free game, and yes, there are microtransactions, there are limits that will need to be overcome with the premium currency. A lot of the weapons and a lot of the Warframes, while they can have their blueprints bought, as well as their pieces farmed, and then you can make those without spending money, you will have to obtain premium currency, the platinum, either with real money or through trading with other players, giving them rare items for their premium currency in return. Luckily, this is a pretty prevalent thing, and there are even third-party websites and in-game areas that makes trading a lot more accessible, a lot easier than it used to be. And it's not too difficult to grind other currencies in the game, to power up other basic things that you can unlock fairly easily, and once these are powered up through the currency grinding, say one of the cards that increases your Warframe health. If you grind a bunch of Endo, which is needed to upgrade that card to its max rank, and then you sell that main card, it should give you enough platinum to buy like a straight up another Warframe with a new slot and all of its things upgraded. As you play and grind in Warframe, you will obtain a lot of loot, and not all of it is trash. A lot of it has its own purpose, and people seek a lot of things all the time. So getting platinum for that new Warframe you want, for that new cosmetic you want, or for that new weapon, or whatever you want, it's not as difficult as others would lead you to believe. And while I would say something like Path of Exile is probably the most fair in terms of free-to-play and having microtransactions that you'll ever see, Warframe doesn't fall too far behind. If Path of Exile is a 10, I would say Warframe is a 7 in terms of, how the microtransactions are tied into the game. If you are a fan of grind, though, then this is probably one of the best games to grind, simply because of how great the gameplay is. Even playing solo, and then playing with your friends is even better. In terms of online 4-player co-op PvE, this Warframe, it's hard to beat. It really is. And then the number one reason that you should be hyped for Warframe and or be playing it in 2017 is because of the stellar upcoming content coming out, and the fact that Warframe is an ever-evolving, ever-refining game that won't be replaced with sequels that have you start over, or a game that starts off as a fair free-to-play game but then just kind of loses its way and becomes pay to win. That's not going to happen to Warframe. It's been around too long for those paradigms to change that much. And then there's that upcoming content that I was talking about. Yes, there's always going to be new Warframes added to the game, new Prime Warframes, new weapons. And like I said, there's like 30 plus Warframes, not counting the Prime Warframes that are out now, and just hundreds of weapons. It's very cool. But that aside, some of the best new content that's coming out, I think somewhere in October, maybe. Don't quote me. This is going to be open world. Open world content is coming to Warframe, and I interpret it as Warframe's own version of what Destiny's patrol zones are. We're talking about a 3 kilometer by 3 kilometer open world zone with an active, ever-changing night and day cycle. During the day, you fight the standard Grineer enemies on the ground or wherever, and then during the night, you have these huge kaiju bosses that show up that you can fight, and that's going to be a challenge. You're going to get a new, apparently, glass Warframe. I think that's rumored with this new open world update. This is going to be like its own separate mode on top of all the missions that you can run with the randomly generated environments, except this is all, it's static. Of course, the 3 kilometer by 3 kilometers is not randomly generated. This was all hand designed by the team. So there's water, there's fishing, there are towns with NPCs that you can interact with in real time with other players. I don't know how many players are going to be in this big open world zone. I would guess probably 10 plus. But you can also fly around in this new zone. You're not going to have something like Destiny's Sparrow that allows you to just zip around on the ground from one interesting area to another. It's, from a exploration standpoint, going to be a little bit more organic. And the ability to fly in 3D space in this environment is really cool. It's especially since flying gives you access to more weapons as well, due to the way that flying works in Warframe, because there are special flying only missions. But they just kind of took that and put it into this open world stuff, and that's a ton of exploratory freedom you got there. And there you have it. Those are my 5 reasons that you should be hyped and or be playing Warframe in 2017. Warframe is free, it's fast, it's fluid, and it's ever evolving and refining itself, making it better and better as time goes by. The only other game like Warframe in terms of how it improves over time and it just expands on everything that it's doing and does a good job at it would be Path of Exile. That's really the only other free game that comes to mind, in my opinion, that really does all of those same things. And you may have noticed that there were some comparisons to Destiny and even a little bit of Shadow of War during this video. Well, that was intentional, because I feel like Destiny 2 in this game, especially now that Destiny 2 is coming on PC and is on all the consoles as well as Warframe, there is a lot that can be compared and contrasted between both of these games, and that's something that I'm going to be doing in my next video, comparing Warframe to Destiny 2 to settle the question on whether or not which one is better, regardless of the money, regardless of, you know, free to play versus $60. I mean, that will be a little bit a part of it, but it's going to be interesting comparing and contrasting what both of these games do and to see which game does more better. So if that sounds interesting to you and or you enjoyed this video, then you know what buttons to press to make me happy as a YouTuber. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.
And head for extraction. What? Where's my damn treasure? I was told there would be treasure. Whatever that was, it wasn't here for our benefit or yours. Only time will tell what was just uncovered.